bear my cross. You laid down your life, and I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. You are my source of life. You need, you will supply. I know you've got it all covered. You're a loving Father. I live by faith, not sight. Even when my eyes don't see it, you know what I need before I know I need it. Even when I don't believe it, I know you are for me. Even when my heart's uneasy, I'll say follow tomorrow that you need it. Even when I don't believe it, I know you are for me. You're always on my side. I'll trust you with my life. I know you got it all covered. You're a loving Father. I live by faith, not sight. Even when my eyes don't see it, you know what I need before I know I need it. Even when I don't believe leave it, I know you are for me. Even when my heart's uneasy, I'll survive tomorrow that you leave it. Even when I don't believe it, I know you are for me. Oh, oh, oh. I know you are for me. I let go and follow. I won't worry about tomorrow. I let go. I let go. I let go. I let go and follow. I won't worry about tomorrow. I let go. 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 Even when my eyes don't see it, you know what I need before I know I need it. Even when I don't believe it, I know you are for me. Even when my eyes don't see it, you know what I need before I know I need it. Even when I don't believe it, I know you are for me. Even when my heart's uneasy, I still follow tomorrow, Lord, as you leave it. Even when I don't believe it, I know you are for me. Oh, oh, oh. I know you are for me. I let go and follow. I won't worry about tomorrow. I let go. I let go. I let go. Sing that with me. I let go and follow. I won't worry about tomorrow. I let go. 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 When my eyes don't see it, even when I don't believe it, I know you are for me. Even when my eyes don't see it, Lord, I follow you before I know I need it. Even when my heart's uneasy, I know you are for me.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Encounter Church. So glad to see each and every single one of you here. Are you excited to be here? I hope that you are. And listen, we really believe that today can be one of the most hopeful and helpful times of not just your day, but your week. And so we're glad that each and every single one of you are here. I've already had the chance to connect and meet a few of you that are first-time guests. So we're glad that you're here as well. Whether you're joining us online or in the room, today's going to be a great day. We'd love, if you have not done this yet, it's a way, even 2 times already this morning, I've said, hey, you can sign up for what you're asking about through the app. And so if you've been here for a while and have not downloaded the app yet, we'd love for you to do that. If you're here for the first time, we'd love for you to download the app, encounterchurch.com/app. You can follow along in the message notes today. You can download even the Bible verses that we'll be teaching from today. You can also sign up for some of the things that you'll hear about in the rest of the hour through the app. So if you're a first-time guest, hit connection card once you download the app and fill that out. Let us know that you're here. As you get to know us, we'd love to get to know you. You can also fill out the connection card you received when you came in the door. Later in the service, place that in the offering basket when it's passed around, and that'll let us know that you're here, and we'd love to get to know you. We're going to sing one more song together, and then our pastor, Chris, is going to come and wrap up this series that we've been working through during the month of February called What Happy Couples Know. And after that, we'll sing another song together before we dismiss and enjoy the rest of our Sunday. Once again, thanks for being here. Let's continue to sing together. We're anticipating a great day, and we're glad you're a part of it. Let's sing.
burdens down, lose my worries in your love, casting every care on you. I have carried them enough. We're not alone here within your love. Emmanuel, He is still with us. When the world becomes too much, near the cross I will remain, until every fear is stilled at the mention of your name. We're not alone here within your love. Emmanuel, He is still with us. We're not alone here within your love. Emmanuel, He is still with us. Mercy is falling, falling. Lift up your hands, receive it now. Here in the presence of the Lord, mercy is falling, falling. Lift up your hands, receive it now. Here in the presence of the Lord, I know your past is broken. You can move on, it's over now. Here in the presence of the Lord, You're in the presence of the Lord. Mercy is falling, falling. Lift up your hands, receive it now. You're in the presence of the Lord. You may be seated.
We're brought here today by the love that Sarah and Davis share for each other.
We're going to be so happy.
We'll be so happy. I'm gonna crush it at being a husband. Happy anniversary, babe.
Great idea coming here.
It's been an amazing year.
It sure has.
Wait, you do gifts on your anniversary? Why did nobody tell me this?
Did he forget my gift?
Quick, say something.
I also ordered you a gift. It has not gotten here yet.
I have a feeling I know what it is. I mean, I've been hinting pretty heavily.
Absolutely no idea.
So, there's been something I've been wanting to talk to you about.
Uh-oh. She caught me using the decorative soaps again.
Have you, thought about us having a baby?
Kids, we just got married. Are you serious? I can't create a human.
Yep, he's totally freaking out right now.
Crying, mess, noise, poop, lots of poop.
Honey.
Yes. What? I'm ready to think about having the
Why don't you open your gifts?
Okay.
What?
We made a baby.
You're pregnant.
Yeah, I'm so pregnant.
Like how much?
Like 100%. Like all the way pregnant. Ah!
It's gonna be a boy. He's gonna be awesome. He's gonna play football.
It's gonna be a girl. She's gonna be my best friend.
I'm gonna teach him how to build stuff,
She's gonna do ballet,
throw stuff,
shopping,
break stuff,
theater,
burn stuff.
mommy's little princess.
He's gonna be my little buddy.
We're having a baby.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
We're gonna crush parenting.
I'm gonna crush it at being a dad.
Cheers.
Yeah, this is gonna need to be decaf.
Is that
If you
a
don't mind.
pregnant thing?
Hey, welcome to Encounter Church. My name is Chris. I'm going to miss that couple because today is the last day of our series, What Happy Couples Know, and it's been fun kind of journeying with them, and it's like they understand us or think some of the same things that we often find ourselves thinking. Today what I want to do is wrap up the series and just kind of send us out with a really kind of practical handle on what happy couples know. Last week I kind of went into this message and it was such a kind of was loaded John 4 that I said I had to break it into 2 parts, and I promised you there would be a second part, and I just wanted to make you aware that we filmed a new, actually a whole second half of the message. It's like 19 minutes. It's visual. That's why you didn't get it as an audio podcast, is that we wanted, there's kind of this visual illustration I'm doing in the midst of the message. So if you have the app or you subscribe to us on YouTube, you can find, it's called Going for the W, because the whole message is about going from the holes in our life to becoming whole in our life. And that's just that simple shift of going for the W makes all the difference. And so we look at John 4 and this woman and how she goes for the W in this conversation with Jesus. So it's just kind of my little announcement, disclaimer, because I told you I would, and I just wanted you to be aware. Friday you would have gotten an email and a push notification, just kind of set that up. Today is going to kind of shift to what happy couples know about love. And I want to start there by starting in December of 1776, because that's where you always go when you think about love. A bit of a historical nut. I love reading. My wife doesn't even ask me sometimes what I'm reading anymore because it gets a little ridiculous. I'm reading a book right now on George Washington's reading habits, which is actually, that's a real book. A book about another man reading a book. And I sit there in bed and I'm like, this is fascinating. She's like, what are you reading? I'm like, I'm reading about George Washington's reading habits. She's like, never mind. Like, whatever it is that you think is interesting in that book is not, but it is. And so this December 1776 was an interesting period in American history. We just declared, July of that year, this profoundly declarative statement that we are free, we're going to be independent, we're going to pursue our own path. The Continental Congress forms and votes to say, we've had enough of you British people and we're going to become our own thing. Continental Congress forms the Continental Army, and they pick a man who up at that point had never been a general ever in his life, a guy named George Washington, whose kind of most successful thing in life had been, prior to that, as a military officer, had been not dying in a 7-year war battle. That's what he had going for him. He didn't die when everyone else died. And he gets picked to be the commander, the general. He's never led an army, so he's ordering books left and right about how to build an army. How do you train an army? How do you start an army? How do you actually send an army into battle? And so he's reading all of these books that he's getting on building an army. All the while, he's struggling to lead this army against the most powerful force on planet Earth at the time, the British Army. It gets to December, and there's a lot of grumblings and rumblings. See, the Continental Army, the way it was structured was people only enlisted for a certain time period. At the end, December 31st, 1776, the Continental Army ceased to exist unless they signed back up. And here it is, December. The British has just taken Rhode Island, and according to rumors, Rhode Island just kind of completely collapsed. They didn't even put up a fight. The British Army, thousands of them, are sitting in Trenton, breathing down the neck of Philadelphia, which is where kind of that next great city that they haven't taken yet. Because they didn't take us, we fought back, but then they went to New York and they completely defeated us there. And now it's Philadelphia is the next major city, and the Americans are terrified. Some of the strongest kind of patriotic strongholds in the colonies are starting to have second doubts, and there's pretty passionate rumors being spread that this cause is already lost, that what started July 4th, 1776 isn't going to make it through the year. That's what he has on him. He's got an army that is barely hanging on, with only a few weeks left before it ceases to exist. The states that promised to send money and people aren't doing it. And it looks like all the world is going to be lost, and everyone's blaming it on him. And he does something brilliant, something crazy. He decides that they're going to invade a little post right outside of Trenton, New Jersey on Christmas night. There's a Hessian outpost that he believes that if they can take it, if they can reclaim it, then maybe that'll turn the tide. Maybe that'll make his men want to stay. And so what do they do? In Christmas night, they load up in boats, they march across snowy landscapes, and they sneak up. The weather causes a bit of a delay. When the attack was supposed to happen at 6 a.m. before the sun is up, it's now 8 a.m. before the battle begins. But what happens is 45 minutes later, the battle's already decided. And here was the password for the battle. The password that we had was victory or death. That's the password the soldiers walked around with that night. Victory or death. And 45 minutes later, there was victory. Only 2 American soldiers passed away that evening, that day, and neither were directly related to battle causes. It was just exposure to the cold weather. We completely routed them, and that moment was a turning point. Our nation, it is arguable that our nation would not exist today had that night not happened. Because that galvanized that force that just a couple days later would do another kind of galvanizing moment, and they would sign back up, and we would eventually come out victorious against the most powerful superpower on planet Earth at the time. And here's why I believe love, kind of this picture of love starts there and has this part of something that we can draw out of it, is that I think George Washington understood something that great couples understood. It's that greatness, great moments, great battles, great relationships never happen by accident. They happen out of a decisive moment, out of an intentionality, and out of a willingness to see something different. that what great couples know is what George Washington knew. That you don't get to greatness by accident. You choose to get there. And that for many of us in our relationships, whether it's marriage or whether it's with a roommate or whether it's with a mom or dad or siblings or cousins or coworkers, the principle's transferable to all. That it's born out of great relationships or born out of decisiveness, not accidentalness. And to get there, I want to take you to a passage, one of the most famous chapters on love in all of the New Testament, all of the Bible, arguably. It's this passage found in the letter to the church in Corinth called 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It's a passage I imagine even if you're new to church, you're new to Bible reading, or maybe you're just checking back in recently, that most likely you've encountered this passage before. It gets said in almost every wedding. It gets printed on these fancy word prints that people hang in their house. It's put on towels that hang in their bathrooms, right? Like this is one of those things that get put on keychains. It's the love chapter. But to understand, instead of jumping straight into chapter 13, I want to set the backdrop a little bit because I think it's really helpful to understand that 1 Corinthians 13 had nothing to do with marriage. Paul did not write 1 Corinthians 13 thinking one day people will quote this as vows in a wedding ceremony. He didn't intend it that way. It was bigger than that. You see, the church in Corinth, the city of Corinth at the time, is about 700,000 people. It's really similar to kind of modern day Boston. It's a very cosmopolitan global city. Financially, it's doing really, really well. A lot of influence globally at the time. This is a powerhouse in the Roman Empire. And educated, there's a lot of different groups. There's a lot of different ethnicities. There's a lot of tensions. There's a lot of divisiveness. There's a lot of pagan religions. So there's a lot of different belief systems. And Paul comes in around 50 AD. And he starts a church. And the reason we can be really super specific about Paul and his time frame and when he's there and when he's not and what he does is because the Bible doesn't happen in some abstract world like a Harry Potter story does. Right? Like if you go to London, you don't stand on platform 9 3/4 and actually step into Hogwarts, right? But this actually happened. This is geographically, these places still exist today. So two of the places that gets referenced about Paul and the individuals that are referenced about Paul when he's in Corinth still exist there today. In the last 100 years, those two places have been rediscovered. So this is happening in a historical context, and we know the time frames for certain leaders and when that synagogue for the Hebrews was established. And so we can really drill in specifically for when Paul shows up in the 50s. And he goes and he starts this church in the midst of this city. This really complex city. And there is a wow kind of thing that happens. Lives are changed, like marriages are changed, something happens. And people are drawn to this message and it starts to grow and it starts to build. And Paul stays there for 18 months. It's the longest up till this point in Paul's life. It's the longest that Paul has ever lived somewhere. Because Paul has this desire. He's a hustler. He's hungry. He's a pusher. He's a mover. He wants to keep pressing on. But he stays there for 18 months, which tells you a little bit about what's going on and the way he feels about these people. So he leaves, and about 5 years later, he gets rumors and he hears word of this church in Corinth that had been captivated by the wow, really struggling with the how. They'd had so much upbringing, there were so many divergent viewpoints, there were so many different things that what happened was this old way of thinking was starting to influence this new way of living. And while Paul was there for 18 months, he didn't get to establish the new way of living. And so what happened is after 5 years, the old way of their thinking started to creep back in. There's this unity, there's divisiveness, there's drama. It's a little bit like a Jerry Springer kind of show going on inside the church. And Paul cares about these people. And so he begins to write a series of letters to them. He writes 3 to 4 letters, and 2 of them we still have today. They're called 1 Corinthians and they're called 2 Corinthians. And these two letters kind of capture the heart of what Paul's going back and forth with. And it's in that divisiveness, it's in pushing up against all of this like arguing and backbiting and all of this fighting and all of this lack of really understanding this new way of life called Christianity that Paul writes 1 Corinthians 13. It's why at the beginning of 1 Corinthians 13, from 12 to 13, he says, and now let me show you the most excellent way. Which is such a pimp sentence, right? He's like, look, you people think you understand. You're arguing with each other. You condescend one another. This group thinks they're better than this group. And all along, you think you understand. But let me show you the most excellent way. And that is the sentence that transitions to the statement about love. And over the course of those 13 verses, he unpacks love. And there is so much there. I'm only going to pick two of them today. Verse 4 and verse 5. And so if you have the app that Jason referenced, if you've downloaded, you'll find in the message notes they're already preloaded for you. And if not, you'll find them on the screen around me. It begins with this. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. And it keeps no record of wrongs. And perhaps at that point, you want to kind of nudge someone beside you because you're like, that just presses into your life, doesn't it? It just steps on your toes and gets into your world and says, hey, here's the reality. But knowing what you know about what's going on there, you can imagine how they would have heard it, right? Paul starts out this people that are fighting and arguing and backbiting, and he's saying, love is patient, love is kind. Let me tell you what love does not do. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrongs. And they're like, junk. We've completely missed the boat because in this church in Corinth, they're doing all the other parts. And he's saying to them, look, you are not loving one another. You are doing the very opposite of loving one another. It's like check, 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 check. But they miss the patient and the kind part. And it's really easy in the English language. I could just stop there, right? It's like, all right, got it. It's done. I know what love is and I know what love isn't. But the reality is that this isn't written in English when it was written. It's written to a people in first century in Corinth, and it's written in Greek, which is a common tongue for the day. It's what they all speak. Which is why this passage can be skipped over and we can miss some of the weight that it has. And I'll try not to get too nerdy because I really hated English growing up. I don't know about you. Like my senior year of college is when I took English 102 because I was really afraid of it. And I remember having to conjugate verbs and like, I will never use present, past, whatever. Like, I don't even know that. I've never been in a moment where I've needed to use that tense of a verb, right? I just naturally did not like English grammar and structure. My wife graduated with honors with an English degree. Do not understand it. Right? We would go on dates to Shakespeare, and I don't have a clue what those people are talking about. And so I've got my phone out, and it's like Shakespeare for Dummies. And it's like, yo, what's up, Romeo? I'm like, oh, that's what that meant? Oh, he just said, hey. I'm like, I got that. And I would literally read along because I have no clue what these people are talking about. Like, this is not my strength. But I'm a nerd. Obviously, you've learned that. I read books about what other people read books about. And so what's fascinating is this passage in the original language. So when you read this passage in the original language, what's unique is agape. That's the word for love. The Greeks had a far richer vocabulary for the word love. We can love our spouse. We can love our parents. We can love the Red Sox. And we can love tacos. And we use the same word. And some of us may use that same word intensely on all four, right? But most of us, we love differently, but we use the same word. The Greeks actually had 4 different ways of saying the word love. They separated it out and made it a little bit easier to understand when you were speaking about loving someone because they're kind of this brotherly love, or loving someone because there's this romantic love, or loving someone or something because you just really liked it and there was a passion for it. But the highest love, the greatest word in the Greek language was the word agape. And when you read this in the Greek, what happens is agape is put forth. This is how the sentence starts. And then you read agape, and then you read the word patience. But it's not an adjective. It's a verb. Then you read agape, kind, not an adjective, a verb. And when you read verse 4 and 5, what you find is every single one of these descriptors are verbs. Which is really interesting because Paul's making a profound statement. For most of us, we think of patience and kindness as adjectives. They're characteristics, right? They're a kind person. Even when you read this, you read is as a linking verb. Love is patient. Patience and love are interchangeable. But what Paul was really saying is that love is not a characteristic. It's a choice. Which made this really challenging because there is no verb, there is no word in the English language to capture what Paul was saying. How do you kind someone? How do you patient someone? We don't have a word for it. But they did. And it's this word that Paul uses to set the stage. He's like, love is not a feeling. It is not something that passively happens to us. He's not giving us verbiage about the word love. He's giving us verbs for what love is. Because when you realize love is a choice, all of a sudden you shift from passiveness to action. The responsibility that was on your emotions, that you had to wait for it to hit you for you to do something, now you are back in charge. He's elevating this idea and concept of love. He's like, it doesn't matter what you feel. You're elevated beyond that plane of feelings to that plane where you get to make a choice and a decision. You have the power. He can command them to do it because it's not an emotion. Emotions are reactionary. You can't command someone to have an emotion. I know as parents, we try to do that sometimes, right? We look at our kids and we're like, you will have a good time. And we try to command this emotion on them, but you can't command someone to have an emotion. But you can command someone to make a choice, which is what he's doing. It's like you need to make a choice. You need to make a choice to do, I can't even say it because there's not an English word. To kind. You need to make a choice to patient. You need to make a choice to not self-seek. A choice to not be proud. A choice to not be envious. Because it's not just a choice, it's exclusive. He holds out these two extremes. He's like, you're either choosing kindness or patience as a verb, or the alternative is over here. So when we choose love, we're either moving towards something or away from something. And he holds out these two distinctive choices and verbs and action that love has, that we're to move towards. Kindness and patience. Again, there's not even an English word for it. But to kind someone and to patient them. And what he does is he starts to do something that even research is starting to kind of pick up. Paul lays out an idea of love and a way of doing relationships that thousands of years later, we're just starting to detect in social research. So what's been fascinating is that in the study of marriage and other relationships, there's this interesting shape that happens when they track relationships, the great relationships. And it's called a U-curve. And it's called a U-curve because it's shaped just like the letter U. It starts off over here really happy. Right? It's where the love songs come from. I will always and I will ever and I will be there, right? Mountains will be scaled and oceans will be swam. Like it's just all the feelings. And you remember that. If you've dated or you meet your new BFF and it's like everything they do is awesome. They're great. Maybe it's your spouse and when you first met them, you loved how disheveled and disorganized and creative they were. You loved it. You loved how they could just get lost in whatever it is that they did. You loved how determined and decisive and diligent and hardworking she was. There's things, they just jumped out at you and you loved them. You felt good about them. And then 3 to 5 to 7 years into the relationship, that disorganization, that creativity, you don't feel so good about. Because that means they don't understand that a dishwasher is meant to wash dishes, but it has to be placed inside. Then they don't realize that you don't walk out of a room and just leave things laying on the floor. Or you don't squeeze the toothpaste from the middle. Like, what are you, a barbarian? What is wrong with you? But these things that we thought were awesome, that we felt so good about at the beginning of the U-curve, they drop. And that's why around 7 years into most relationships, you see breakup if they don't make the transition. Because feelings, after about 2 years, they start to wear off. Right? If you've ever had a child, when they're first born, you love it. You actually somewhat are okay with waking up at the middle of the night. And then when they're 3 and 4 and 5 and they wake you up in the middle of the night and it's 3 a.m., you're like, are you bleeding? Is there a limb missing? Well, let's talk about it in the morning. Go back to bed. But when they were 2 months old, oh my goodness, look at the way they just squeak when I hold them. Now, when they're 7 and they've been squeaking continuously in the back seat, it's not as cute anymore, is it? Why? Because the feelings have transitioned. You've gone into this U-curve. And it's a drop, precipitous drop. And it happens across the board. It's a human characteristic, and it's driven out of this idea that my feelings motivate me to act. But then what happens with that kind of good upward trajectory at the beginning of that U is the feelings drop out and the actions do too. And there starts to be frustration. Relationships get stagnant. The things that you used to love start to become things that you loathe. And you start to focus on all the things they do that drives you insane. And you miss all the things that brought you in the first place. And what they found when they study great relationships is that great relationships don't just have the first half. They don't just drop. It's a U, so they start to climb back on the other side. And they end at a higher place of happiness and a higher place of richness than where they started. And the reason is because they make this shift that Paul is talking about in 1 Corinthians 13. They go from seeing love as a feeling to understanding love as a choice. To going from love as an adjective and a noun to love as a verb. And when you make that shift, what you discover is the grand secret about love is that where in the beginning feelings made you act, on this other side, you act and then you feel. And the feelings are richer after the action. I love my wife emotionally more after I do things that I don't want to do. It's true. It's doing something for her when she's like, hey, I left my phone in the car. We're in the bed. Can you go get it for me? And in my head, I'm like, heck no, woman. Nobody's going to call you at 2 a.m. If it's really an emergency, they'll call me. My phone's plugged in right beside me. We're good. It's like I'm all snug. Because then I got to get dressed. I got to put stuff back on. Then I got to walk down steps. It's always cold. Then I got to walk out, and sure, there's probably going to be someone looking at me. Then I got to rummage through the car because it's in the car is very, very clear until you get to the car and you're like, there's like 75 square feet of footage here, people. Like, where is this thing? But those moments when I'm like, okay, yes, sweetie, even though your legs are completely capable of doing it, and you know exactly where it is, I will get out of this warm bed and I will go do that for you. But it's usually walking back up the steps that I feel the feelings. Or if I'm really angry because I got out of the bed, it's after I get in the bed and I hand her the phone and she says, thank you so much. I love you. And she gives me a little kiss. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Right? But that's that second half of the U-curve. We act, then we feel. And this is what Paul was holding out to them. He's like, look, great relationships follow this path. If they don't, they break down, and that's why they end in the middle. Because they believe the best is behind them. My wife and I have been married for going on 13 years. And one of the things that we believe sincerely about our relationship, and that if I was sitting across from you, that I could sincerely impart to you about your relationships, no matter where they are, is that the best years of your relationship can be in front of you. Because I believe this. I believe that the richest years that you can have in your relationship are not behind you. They can be ahead of you. Because any relationship where two people are committed to doing this, where they make the choice and the decision every single day to love, to kind, to patient one another, then you've got the uphill trajectory. It doesn't mean things won't be hard. It doesn't mean you won't have struggles. It doesn't mean that there won't be days where you don't feel a lot of good things. It just means that you are on the uphill climb and you are headed to a higher mountain than the mountain that you judge your relationship with at the beginning when you first met. And because there is a richer and deeper and fuller relationship on this side than ever what was on. This is all surface. This is all the trailer to get you to commit to what it's going to take to get the substance that's over here. Right? This is like a McDonald's like McSteak burger. And this is a Ruth Chris 9-ounce filet. This is just to make you hungry for what you could have. This is how Paul structures. This is how God designs relationships. This is what he holds out for us. And so when I was writing down what does love look like, I went, love is sweaty. It's a sweaty kind of love. And I was like, I don't know if I can say sweaty love from the stage, but I just did, so I guess I can. But it's that harder, better kind of sweaty where you wake up every single day and you say, I'm going to be here to do love like a verb. And let me just give you, kind of as I wrap up, I just want to press in and define what kindness as a verb and patience as a verb looks like. It may help you as you're wrapping your mind around this non-existent English word that I'm talking about. Which is crazy, right? I'm talking about a concept that we literally don't have a word for. So to be kind as a verb is this intentional benevolence. That sounds really like a really profoundly way of saying it. It just means that your actions are predicated, your actions are done for their good, not your own. You do things for their benefit, not your benefit. That's the mark of kindness. Kindness is not a characteristic that some rare group of people have. Kindness is meant to describe all of us if we're loving one another. Kindness looks like the way that you kind of would focus. So in our family, we have certain family values, as I'm sure you do. Gratitude is one of our family values. We believe Causies are grateful people. We're thankful for what we have. That's what we focus on. We choose to focus on what's in front of us, not what is behind us or not what is around us. Gratitude, that matters. But there's another little like family thing that we do is that we believe that we leave people and places better than how we found them. I just think that when you go somewhere, I'm like that weird, like we're that weird couple who like cleans up our hotel room. Because we're just like, I just want to like when the person walks in, I want them to feel good and be like, man, I was thinking I wasn't going to get everything done today. And then they got to our room and it was like, bam, we already arranged all the towels and the sheets and put them in the order for you. Like there's just something about, I'm weird. I get it. I see a counselor. I recognize that. But there's just something about it where I'm like, I think we should live places. I think we should leave people better than how we found them. Imagine your life if the relationships you had were people who were committed to leaving you better than how they found you. How awesome would that be? Would you want to be in a relationship with someone who you knew when they hung out with you, they wanted to leave you better than how they found you? I'd want that kind of relationship. I want those kind of people in my life. And that's what kindness is as a verb. It's this choice, a decision to leave people better than how you found them. That means you encourage them. It means you're serving them. It's these like subtle things that you do to leave them better than how you found them. And patience isn't this stoic thing where you're just completely unmoved. Patience as a verb means calm in chaos. The image, there's actually a word picture associated with this in the Greek language, and it's this imagery of a swimmer who's stuck at the sea but who can see the shoreline. And they're swimming toward it. That's the Greek word picture for patience, which is interesting. As I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, it totally makes sense because when you're swimming and you're staring at something, you're maintaining control on the inside. You start to drown when you lose control of you. But as long as you got that shoreline and you're moving, then it doesn't matter if there's waves. It doesn't matter how deep the water is. You got a trajectory. You're headed somewhere. And for someone who's doing patience as a verb, it means in the midst of chaos, in the midst of mommy, 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 daddy, 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 daddy. Or why didn't you take the trash out? Or did you forget to get the milk? I asked you 7 times. Or I'm going to need you to stay here this weekend and get this report done. I don't care if you have plans. You need to get this done. Or you're done. And every one of those moments, they just stir up something in you. Right? You want to put a cork in someone's mouth, or you want to slap them. You ponder, like, is it a misdemeanor or a felony to slap someone? Because if it's a misdemeanor, I might risk that. But a felony sticks. Right? I mean, you're like having these thoughts. And what patience looks like as a verb is you stay calm. You choose to maintain control of you, even when everything else around you looks like it's out of control. And for some of you, that may mean just a breathing exercise where you count in slowly 1, 2, 3, 4, and you hold for 7 seconds, and then you breathe out slowly for 8. It may mean you do that a couple times, and all of a sudden, you get centered back on that shoreline. And you find you've maintained control, even if everything else around you has lost control. I think if you practice kindness and patience, it's really hard to have a fight that destroys your relationship. It's really hard for a couple, especially if 2 people are committed to doing this, to destroying a relationship. And the best kind of relationships are built off, if you just did these 2, Paul actually lists 7 more items in the midst of 1 Corinthians 13. But what's fascinating, just to kind of wrap it up, that I think is helpful is that, so it's really practical. Any of us, no matter what you believe, you can kind of track into this. But the Greek words that Paul uses actually went through a transformation early to his writings. You see, the Christian faith, what gets held up as the definition of love is Jesus. In the Greek language, after Jesus' birth, death, and resurrection, these 2 words change their meaning. They begin to mean something differently after Jesus walks planet Earth, because Jesus embodied kindness. He embodies patience in such a way in his interactions that the Greeks started to shift how they use this word in their writings. So when Paul uses this word, it's even richer than it meant 50 years prior in their language. This word has a whole new picture. And for Christians, I think it adds an extra layer of helping us. Because when I'm in those moments and I'm not sure what to do, I think about how God was kind towards me. I think of how he did things for my good that caused him sacrifice for his. That he chose good for me, even when I wasn't choosing it for myself. When I think about his kindness towards me, it's easier for me to step into that choice to be kind. And when I think about his patience, when my daughter is blowing up in front of me and doing something that it just grates at the core of who I am and it makes me angry, I'm able to take a step back as a father and think about how God has fathered me and how God parented me. And I'm like, man, I am so glad he was a better parent than I was. Because he was gracious to me when I wouldn't have been gracious to me. And he forgave me when I probably wouldn't have forgave me. And when I step into the way that word gets redefined because of who Jesus is, it changes how I want to practice kindness. And it changes how I want to practice patience. Because at this church, we sincerely believe, looking at the life of Jesus and looking at our own lives, that in the end, love does. That we leave people better than how we found them. That we breathe in a very deep breath even when the world around us is falling apart. And that gives us a freedom to discover what happy couples already know. That love is not a feeling. It's a choice. And that great relationships don't happen accidentally. They happen intentionally. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for your example. Thank you for your model, and for the way that you've been kind to us and for the way that you've been patient with us. I pray that we would reflect this in our own lives, that you would help us to be people who even today, as we walk out of this place and go into the areas and spaces of our lives, that we would practice kindness, that we would practice patience, and that we would choose love. And I encourage those who are in relationships where they are looking at the other and see the voids. Give us hope and vision for what relationships could be in our lives, and help us to be people who live out what we've discovered that happy couples know. And it's in your name I pray. Amen. I want to thank you for being here today. We're going to wrap up the same way we wrap up every single week. We're going to close with a song, and the song's called The Rock Won't Move. And it's probably a new song for many of you, but this idea is just, the song's centered around this idea that God doesn't shift and change. God doesn't move up and down with his affection towards us, with his thoughts towards us, with his character, like the stock market. He doesn't have good days and bad days. He doesn't oversleep or undersleep. He doesn't wake up on the wrong side of the bed. He's the rock. And it doesn't move. It's strong and it's secure and it's stable. And for some of us who are maybe struggling with relationship struggles in our life right now, it's a good place to stand on. To realize maybe all the relationships in your life feel like they're falling apart, but this relationship doesn't have to. It's strong and it's secure. And for those who maybe are looking at their relationships and they're like, I want it to be better, it's just a reminder that like he holds out himself as an example for us, for what our relationships could look like, for how we could love and live those people in our lives. And while we're singing, you're going to notice people moving around. We've created this space because we really believe this can be the most hopeful and helpful part of your week. And so we want to give you a place to pause and reflect. So some people may be jotting down notes. Some people may be thinking through a relationship and typing it into the message notes to send to themselves later. For others, you're going to see them baskets being passed around. And that's one of the moments we carve out to practice generosity. Today, we're going to open up registration for you and for some others who have known about the egg drop. And tomorrow it goes live on the internet. And this will be the biggest year we've ever had. We have gotten approval to do over 4,000 people. And we do that without charging a single cent to anyone who shows up. We just want to create positive experiences. We believe you can give kids everything in the world that they want, but if you give them memories, it sticks. If you create those powerful moments where a family comes together and they have a great time and they walk off, like that doesn't rust away. That doesn't rot. That doesn't get thrown in a trash can and picked up by a delivery man. It stays. And so we want to create those positive memories that demonstrate love to our community, because we believe love does. And so the way we're able to do that is your generosity and those who call Encounter Church home. And so you'll see that moment going on. And for others of you, maybe you can use that as a way to use the app to let us know how we can pray for you, get to know you, or to sign up for a next step. But whatever it is, I want to encourage you to stand up. We're going to sing. The band's going to lead us, and we'll respond. And I look forward to seeing you next week, because we're kicking off a really powerful and fun series. Thank you for being here today.
When the ground beneath my feet gives way and I hear the sound of crashing waves, all my world is washing out to sea. I'm hidden safe in the God who never moves, holding fast to the promise of your truth. You are holding tighter still to me. The rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. The rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. The rock of our salvation. is in the promise of your blood, my support within the raging flood. Even in the tempest I can see I'm hidden safe in the God who never moves, holding fast to the promise of your truth, that you are holding tighter still to me. The rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. The rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. The rock of our salvation. Christ, a solid rock, I stand on the ground, a sinking stand. The rock won't move, no, the rock won't move. And when darkness seems to hide his face, I rest on his unchanging grace. The rock won't move, no, the rock won't move. Oh, Christ, the solid rock, I stand all of the ground, the sinking sand. The rock won't move, no, the rock won't move. And when darkness seems to hide his face, I'm blessed on his unchanging grace. The rock won't move, no, the rock won't move. Won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. The rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. Oh, the rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. The rock won't move and his word is strong. The rock won't move and his love can't be undone. The rock of our salvation.
Thanks so much for joining us here at Encounter Church. We hope you found today's message to be both hopeful and helpful to you. I bet we all can think of some relationship where, we just wish that things would be better. And that's why we have groups, so that we can spend some time during the week just pressing into what we are hearing today on Sundays. Today, we have our final group link, which I like to call our kickoff party to groups. So if you haven't signed up for Group Link, there's still time to do so, and we hope to see you later on today, where we will kind of show you guys what Life Group is really all about. And then next week, we officially kick off groups, and you'll have an opportunity to sign up for a group then as well. Chris also mentioned at the end of the message that, we have opened up sign-ups for the egg drop. So if you're looking to get tickets for the egg drop, we hope that you do stop by room 102 to grab your tickets before they're released to the public. And then one final reminder, next week we are also starting Exploring Your Faith class, which will take place on Sundays with myself and my husband kind of leading that program. And we hope that any of you who are looking to, who have questions about faith, do decide to attend that particular course. And before we go, we would love to give you a sneak peek into the series that we're kicking off in March.
Today. Now, there have been some very serious reports of bear sightings in the woods. So, My buddy Jeff dressed up like a bear, and we're gonna scare some hikers.
Hey, Mom, I'm a bear.
We'll put some cameras all in the trees. We're gonna scare some hikers. Jeff, are you ready?
Yeah, man, I'm ready.
He's ready. Let's go. It's gonna work. We got this. YouTube viral video. Get it, Jeff. Get it, Jeff. Get it, Jeff. Yeah. 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 All right, go ahead. Go back.
We hope to see you. We hope to see you guys back here again next Sunday as we kick off that new series. And if you have any questions in the meantime, stop by Starting Point. We'll love to help you out. Thank you.